Hi, and welcome to Holistic Mojo. I am Jamie Sahara Lee, and today we are going to be making ghee. Now, ghee is one of my absolute favorite parts of Ayurveda and one of my favorite things to consume. And often people have a really hard time making ghee because it seems quite complicated. And from everything that I've seen online and in all the textbooks when I was studying, they always say it takes about 20 minutes to make, which I call a flat out lie. I have never spent really less than 45 minutes to an hour making ghee. But then again, I also make large batches of ghee at a time. So you might be asking yourself, what is ghee? Well, ghee is an Ayurvedic superfood. It's full of lots of vitamin A, E, K, and also an antioxidant called conjugated linoleic acid. And this has antiviral properties as well. It also strengthens the gut and therefore your immune system. It's anti-inflammatory, and like many other fats, it is a brain food. So you can put this in your bulletproof coffee in the morning, or in your oatmeal in the morning, or on any food in the morning, and it's going to help sustain your brain function throughout the day. Because it's anti-inflammatory, it's also wonderful to put on wounds. So whenever I burn myself in the kitchen, I automatically go for the ghee, and then I throw a little turmeric on it, and then if I happen to have essential oil laying around, I'll throw some lavender on top of that. But ghee is amazing for healing wounds as well as cooling such things as burns and scrapes and rashes. So it's a lot like coconut oil in that way. Now, how do you make ghee? First of all, you take butter. So today I'm using two different butters. I'm using an organic grass-fed butter that I found in my local grocery store, but I also wanted to share this one with you, so I'll also be using this. This is Kerrygold, and this is the butter that I use often when I'm in Europe because I don't always have availability of butter that I'm either familiar with, so I don't know if it's grass-fed, I don't know if it's organic, anything like that, and that's important. So when I don't know, I always go for the Kerrygold because I can seem to find that just about anywhere I am in the world. Now, when I was in Southeast Asia and when I was living in Bali, I couldn't find this and I couldn't find organic butter. And during that time, I got a French brand and it was called Presidential, I think. So just kind of check out what butters you have, what you have available. You want to go for grass-fed, you want to go for organic when possible. When all else fails, I always try to choose French because the French know butter better than anybody else. So you start with your butter and you put that butter in a large pan or one that's going to hold the amount of butter that you're working with. Now, I like to use ceramic pans because I don't have to worry about anything leaching into it or worrying about any chemicals like that. But I have used metal pans. Again, it's kind of whatever you have. And when I'm traveling, a lot of times I don't have a lot of things. I will almost never make ghee in an aluminum pan just because it leaches into the butter. And I will never make it in a pan that has a Teflon coating just because, again, that leaches into the butter. So try to go as natural as possible when you're making ghee. So that goes into the pan, and then what happens? We turn on the burner, it starts to get warm, it melts the butter. And then as this ghee heats, or as the butter heats, the milk fat and the milk protein will start to separate, and you'll get a lot of foam at the top, and then the bottom will have little bits and pieces that drop down. And because these milk solids separate from the milk fat, you end up with a fat and, shall we say, a butter-like substance that is okay for people who have lactose issues as well as casein issues. So it's really wonderful for that as well. A couple other health benefits of ghee is it's used in Ayurvedic medicine as a little bit of a cure-all, meaning that it is like the base that we put a lot of our medicine into. So we'll use it oftentimes in food, but then also add dried herbs and dried medicinal herbs into it and create little pills or decoctions that go in the body as well as on the body. So ghee has many, many uses. And let's get started making it today. Okay, so the butter is in the pan and the pan is on simmer. I have mine on low because my stove runs a little bit hot. I'm working on a gas stove. If you are also working on a gas stove that runs a little hot, you can get a diffuser that goes between the burner and the pan, and it's just like a flat metal aluminum round piece that has a handle attached to it. Another thing that might be handy if you have a stove that runs hot, as this one does, is this little strainer thing. Put it over the top. It makes a big difference in the amount of mess that I have to clean up at the end of this process. Ghee, I find, is best made on a gas stove. However, if you're working on electric, just know that it also will run very hot for you, and you're going to need to keep an eye on it. Oftentimes I find with electric stoves I have to actually every once in a while pick the pan up to give it a little extra breathing room. And one thing that I don't think I mentioned in the beginning is that you want to be sure that you're using unsalted butter. I was taught in Ayurvedic school that the ghee will not properly separate if you are using salted butter. I have, however, run across one person in the last 10 years that swears they can do it with salted butter. I haven't taken that opportunity yet to try it out, but maybe I'll do that in a little while and come back and let you guys know if it works or not. But for now, stick with the unsalted and everything should be good. And this is probably so it's only been on the stove for about 5 minutes now, and this is probably going to take about an hour. So I've got probably close to a pound of butter. So for a pound of butter you can plan on an hour, but we will keep track of the time as we go. Okay, so you can hear it bubbling now. It is all the way down on simmer, and you can see why I have the screen here. It can make quite a little bubble mess. And as you see, we're starting to get the white foam on the top that shows that separation has begun. I'm not quite sure you can see it in the video, but when I look down into the ghee, there's actually kind of pockets of that foam that's coming up. And we're actually at, it's been here for 20 minutes now. Tendency is often to rush ghee, get it done as quickly as possible, but it is kind of like baking. It requires patience. And if you try to speed through it, you will end up burning the ghee. And then you have to throw out an entire batch of butter, which is just a shame. So we are at the 1 hour mark now. And you can see the ghee is turning a nice golden brown. If I blow some of the foam away, you'll get a better look at that. And there's still kind of like legs of the cream coming up from the bottom. So I am just going to scrape some of this foam off the top. In all the textbooks that I've ever read, it says that this stuff will fall to the bottom. And some of it does. But I've never found the majority of it to actually fall to the bottom. So I tend to start to scrape it off the top just so I can see what's going on. You're looking for the ghee to become a nice golden yellow and clear. So right now, we're still a little foggy in there. And this cream is used, or this milk protein is used traditionally to be given to elderly or the emaciated, the ill, anybody that needs to put a little fat on their body. You give this stuff to. I usually just give it to my dogs. All right, there we go. Now I've got a nice clean plate to look at here. And we'll leave it for a little bit. Now we got a nice little snap, crackle, pop. The ghee is talking to me now, and I want it to be talking. I don't want it to be yelling. So this is kind of like the perfect place for it. But you can get a good listen to what that sounds like. And this ghee is just a few minutes, maybe like 10 or so away from being done. So if I blow on this foam, you can see that the ghee has become much more clear, and there's also a little bit of brown crusties at the bottom. So that's what the film that was on the top is now dropping down to the bottom. And that's what we're looking for. It's still a little cloudy, so we've got just a few more minutes to go. So this has really shifted quite fast. Only took about 3 or 4 minutes, and we went from that golden or light golden brown to this more dark golden brown. As you can see, the final test to make sure that there's no more water left in the butter, and it is in fact completely ghee now, is to take, I'm going to use a shot glass, but any glass will do, any clear glass. You hold it right over the surface, and if it fogs up, you know there's still moisture in there. If it doesn't fog up, like this one did not, then you know it's done. And we're all set. Turn that fire off and we'll strain it. Okay, so now that our ghee's finished, we need to strain it and get it in the jar. So you want to make sure your jar is nice and clean and it's free from any liquid, because if there's liquid in there, your ghee will mold. If there's no liquid in there and if it doesn't get contaminated, meaning you keep using the same spoon and going in and out from other dishes, your ghee will last 2 or 3 months just sitting on the counter. It will last over a year if you put it in the refrigerator, but I go through ghee way faster than that. And they have found ghee that's over 100 years old and still edible. So this stuff sticks around. So I've got my jar and I've got my strainer. This strainer I picked up in the dollar store in Spain. It's just a plastic frame and then kind of a fleecy material that I strain it through. And I just wash this and I take it everywhere with me because I make ghee everywhere I'm going, even if I'm just there for a few days. The other option, this is the option my mom likes to use. My dad came up with it. It's a paint strainer. And it's just a piece of paper. It's got mesh in it, and it goes inside your jar like so, and you strain it through there. However, this is a 2-person job to use this because it doesn't stay in securely on its own, and I'm not one to waste my ghee by spilling it. So I'm going to go with my tried and true handy dandy strainer. So that just sits in the top of the jar. And then very slowly, make sure your pan is not hot before you touch it. Mine's been sitting here for a little bit, so I'm good to go. And I just slowly pour into the jar. All right, so when you look at the bottom of the pan, nice brown crumbs. This stuff is used in India for anybody who's really sick or emaciated, the elderly. It's really building in the body. So it's a little sour. Feel free to taste it. The stuff that I skimmed out earlier, you can see is here in this bowl. It just kind of looks like curd, fried curd. I'll probably feed this to my dogs. They will love it. So yeah, now I've got my ghee in my jar, and I'm just gonna let it sit here and rest. And I keep my ghee out on the counter, but then again, I go through a ton of ghee a day. I use it for everything, for cooking. I use it in my coffee. I actually roast some spices and then put those spices in with my coffee, so I get a spicy bulletproof coffee. So I leave it on the counter, but you can leave it in the fridge. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me, and yeah, have a wonderful day. Enjoy your ghee. Hey guys, I forgot to tell you, if you don't have any of those paint strainers or one of those fancy dollar store strainers to strain your ghee, you can always use cheesecloth. So just about 2 or 3 layers of cheesecloth should be enough to get her done. Cheers!